The biblical account of creation is perhaps second in importance only to the gospel of Jesus Christ. If you accept that God is the creator, everything else in the Bible falls into place pretty easily. Faith in the creation account versus faith in the current scientific prevailing wisdom are two surprisingly similar beliefs and opposite sides of the same coin. You either have faith that there is a supernatural creator, or you have faith that all matter, order, and information appeared from literally nothing, and scientists can't even settle on what nothing actually is. Many pagan nations of the ancient world had their own creation stories. In these stories, the material universe was eternal, and their gods evolved out of natural processes connected with the world itself. But Genesis declares that God existed before creation, and God is in full control of the physical universe. He called the world into being by His word. God is sovereign and His power is absolute. He does not have to conform to nature and cannot be threatened by it. We can organize the creation account into two sections: days of forming and days of filling. The days of forming began with God's first act of creation, bringing into being the great watery chaos, and then bringing order out of chaos. Day 1. God created day and night by dividing light from the darkness. Day 2. God creates the sky and the waters by separating the waters. Day 3. God creates the seas and dry land by gathering the waters together. Then He makes vegetation to grow on the land. This set the stage for days of filling and creation of plant and animal life. After creation is formed, God moves in orderly fashion to the days of filling. On day 4, God creates the sun, moon, and stars to fill the day and the night. Day 5, God creates birds to fill the skies and fish to fill the seas. Day 6, God creates animals and humans to fill the land. And on day 7, God rests and blesses the seventh day, making it holy. We commemorate this day every week. It's called the Sabbath. The next chapter of Genesis zooms in on day 6 of the creation account, Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, and that will be the focus of our next episode. The panoramic view of creation in Genesis chapter 1 is immediately followed in chapter 2 by a complementary account of the sixth day that zooms in on the creation of the first humans, Adam and Eve, who are placed in the Garden of Eden. God begins by creating Adam from the dust of the ground. All the ingredients found in our bodies can be found in the ground, such as carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, calcium, and many trace elements. It's not obvious, but it is verified by science. However, putting all these elements together does not make it alive. God breathed into Adam's body of dust, the divine breath of life, and man became a living being. We also read that God made man in His own image and likeness. In Genesis 1 verse 26, the exact words are, "Let us make man in our image, according to our likeness." While this provocative verse has sparked thousands of years of debate, we can skip the controversy and go right to the Bible for our answer, where the Apostle Paul tells us that God created man with spiritual, rational, emotional, and moral qualities. The account in Genesis 2 continues as God places Adam in the Garden of Eden, where Adam is tasked with working the ground and taking care of the animals. God then brings all the animals before Adam so that they could be named. In spite of all this, Adam was lonely, and there was not found a helper fit for him. So God caused a deep sleep to fall upon Adam, and while Adam slept, God performs the first surgery by taking one of Adam's ribs to create the first woman. God made Eve as a, quote, helper comparable to Adam, created out of Adam's ribs so they were, quote, one flesh. Here we see the first marriage instituted by God. Christ based His teaching on marriage from this very passage. God told the human pair, quote, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. As a consequence, they had a number of children, Cain, Abel, Seth, and a number of other sons and daughters. For some time, Adam and Eve lived together in innocence and happiness, enjoying each other as one flesh without guilt and sin. However, we'll soon see in the next chapter, this bliss would not last forever. We're about to be introduced to the most infamous character in all of creation. The scourge of mankind, Satan himself, will tempt Eve with the very knowledge of the gods themselves. Somewhere between creation and original sin, there exists a gap in the biblical narrative. Or is there? In the book of Acts, Paul implores us to be like the Bereans and search the scriptures daily. And Proverbs tells us, quote, "For it is God's glory to conceal a thing, and the joy of kings to search things out." God completes the creation and calls the creation very good in Genesis 1, verse 31. The book of Job says all of the angels were present and shouting for joy when he laid the foundations of the earth. But in Genesis chapter 3, we're introduced to a character called the serpent. The Hebrew word translated as serpent is nakosh. Nakosh translates more accurately to the shining one. This word doesn't just mean a physical creature. The root word also implies divination, enchantment, and a hissing sound. The connection to divination suggests a perceived link between serpents and hidden knowledge, whether legitimate or deceptive. The hissing sound further contributes to the serpent's mysterious and sinister aura. The book of Revelation confirms the identity of the Shining One, and the great dragon was thrown down, that ancient serpent, who is called the devil and Satan, the deceiver of the whole world. He was thrown down to the earth, and his angels were thrown down with him. We see that somewhere in between creation and original sin, a tragic event occurred in heaven itself with cosmic consequences. An account of Satan's rebellion is found in the book of Isaiah. "How are you fallen from heaven, O day star, son of dawn? You said in your heart, I will ascend to heaven. Above the stars of God, I will set my throne on high. I will sit on the mount of assembly in the far reaches of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High." The prophet Ezekiel gives another account of the fall that places Satan in the Garden of Eden. "You were in Eden, the garden of God. You were an anointed guardian cherub. I placed you on the holy mountain of God. You were blameless in your ways from the day you were created, till unrighteousness was found in you, and you sinned. So I cast you out as a profane thing from the mountain of God. Your heart was proud because of your beauty. You corrupted your wisdom for the sake of your splendor, so I cast you to the ground." The story of Satan's rebellion is yet to reach its final conclusion, but here the biblical narrative clearly points to a fall after the creation and Satan's responsibility for the original sin of mankind. The first two chapters of Genesis portray a picture of the world that is, quote, "very good." God put the first man and woman in the Garden of Eden, a place where they cared for God's creation, and God cared for them. Both Adam and Eve had been living together in innocence and happiness, enjoying a shameless married lifestyle as one flesh without guilt and sin. Stop for a moment and consider the world as it is today. It's easy to see that many things are not the way they should be. If everything was once so good, how did it go so wrong? We're about to answer this question. First, we'll have to flash back to day 6 of the creation. In Genesis chapter 2, verse 15, we read about the mysterious tree of knowledge of good and evil. And the Lord God commanded the man, saying, "You may surely eat of every tree of the garden, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat, for in the day that you eat of it you shall surely die." With the stage set, our main villain enters the story in Genesis chapter 3, Satan. God had issued one restriction to the human couple, not to eat of this forbidden fruit, but Satan engages in a skillfully deceptive dialogue with Eve that results in Eve not being satisfied with their role in creation. Now, having fallen into the temptation of wanting to be like gods, Eve eats the forbidden fruit. In spite of Eve's fateful decision, Adam chooses to join her in sin. Adam knowingly chooses to share Eve's destiny with her and eats the fruit as well. This rebellion has cosmic consequences. Sin and death enter the world, opposing God's blessing on his creation. As image bearers of God, Adam and Eve had a choice: trust in the goodness of their Creator or go their own way, rebelling against the kind of life God had given them. Shame, followed by hiding from God, was their immediate response. The man and woman had known only the goodness of God. In rebellion against their Maker, they came to know evil as well. They tried to hide from God, but it was no use. Sinful choices have consequences. The first couple, and all humanity thereafter, was banished from the Garden of Eden. Sinfulness, corruption, pain, and death entered the world. The world was no longer the way it should be, and the life on earth as we currently know it began. The stories following the expulsion of Adam and Eve from the Garden of Eden in the book of Genesis give a clear, and at times disturbing, portrait of the effects of sin. This is especially seen in the story of two of Adam and Eve's sons, Cain and Abel. Cain, the oldest son of Adam and Eve and the brother of Abel, was a farmer by occupation. Cain brought the fruits of the ground as a sacrifice to God. Abel, a shepherd, brought to the Lord an offering of the firstlings, that is the best quality, of his flock. On this particular occasion, it seems that the Lord accepted Abel's offering, but rejected Cain's. Cain became jealous that Abel's sacrifice was accepted by God when his was not. God attempts to console Cain and correct him, but the sin of jealousy would eventually overtake Cain, and he plotted Abel's demise by luring him out into a field and murdering him. Shortly after the crime is committed, God confronts Cain and asks him where his brother is. Cain replies infamously by stating, "I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper?" God replies by telling Cain that Abel's blood has indeed cried out to him from the ground. In a curious remark, Cain states that he is afraid that others will take revenge on him, suggesting that this event may have occurred many years after the expulsion from the garden. Cain is cursed by God, but is mercifully given a mark of protection that none should take revenge on him. Cain moves east to a land called Nod. We may be able to infer from a brief genealogy at the end of the chapter that Cain was repentant. Cain's sons subsequently had the name of God in them, and Cain even established a city named after his son Enoch. In this sad account, the author of Genesis wants to make a clear point that human nature, now unbound by God's presence in the garden, was immediately and effectively bounded by sin. But God in his mercy will offer us a way out no matter what.